It's Monday, June 4th, 2012. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, government hackers.
Let's do this.
So, this is the second episode of Geeknights that we did, but isn't online yet because our new website is not complete.
It's actually complete, except for the part that uploads
That
the
works.
episodes.
Except for the podcast
It
part.
actually works.
Except for that part of, Geeknights.
No, it works. It's just running out of hard drive space. So the website works, but the hard drive space saving mechanism does not work.
So what's taking up all the space? Because the episodes aren't there.
The episodes.
But I thought we put all the episodes on Libsyn.
No, the episodes are also on the machine. That's because they had to be on the computer when they are ID3 tagged and such and such.
But why don't we have a cron job that deletes them after? I don't know.
Because then the database will become very confused when there's a file name in the database and the file is not present in the file system.
So it archives both the local file and the.
That is the default behavior of a Django file field. So I must override this behavior and keep the files in S3 or whatever.
So I take it the database doesn't have the old 2005 episodes because they're not local.
No, it does not.
I still need to dump that database, but I digress. So I can do my auto backup to my local NAS and make the torrent I want to make of every episode of Geeknights from 2005 to now. Because I can host it here. If one person downloads it, whatever, I have plenty of bandwidth. And if 100 people download it, BitTorrent takes care of that.
Yeah, I don't think that many people are going to download it.
Exactly, but as long as basically it'll never hurt my bandwidth more than we'll see. We'll see what actually happens. I was trying to calculate. I realized it's more complex to calculate because I'm still seeding for the people and depending on the algorithm. But anyway,
it's a lot.
But got to miss our Burning Wheel game tomorrow and almost didn't do a show today because I just got back from Istanbul and now I got to go to Toronto.
Oh, shit.
I don't want to go to Toronto.
No, so don't.
Mostly because the children have cigarette faces for ads.
Yeah.
Mostly I'm flying Porter Air. Apparently I didn't know this, right? Because we live near Toronto. We just drive there. But there's an airport in the middle of Toronto, on this island, and there's one airline that flies to this tiny little airport. So I'm going to fly to this tiny little airport, which means I got to leave from Newark
You could
over
just
here.
fly to Rochester, which is a major
And then what,
airport.
take the slow ferry? Is that thing even still there?
I don't know what happened to
I'm
that.
going to see if that thing's still there, because that was, if the word boondoggle ever described a thing, it is that thing.
There are things that are much more boondoggle. How about that empty hotel in North Korea?
How
or
about
all the multiple empty, unfinished buildings in various communist nations?
but that is not boondoggle. That is simply communism.
Maybe communism is the biggest boondoggle then.
Possibly, but then which brand of communism?
The red communism.
Nah.
Not,
Pilgrims.
Right.
Okay.
with a little commune. We're talking big time.
The ism part.
Right. Anyway.
So what do you got for me? It's Monday. It's
Why do we
Newsday.
even have it for you? I don't have anything for you. Nothing for you. I have a news to read for the listeners of the show.
All right.
For you,
News
I have
away.
nothing.
News away.
So,
Captain.
NASA, it's been a hot topic lately ever since the space shuttle canceling and the SpaceX increase in, the first commercial, space vessel made it to the unmanned, though, made it to the space station.
I was really excited about that.
It's pretty cool. But for quite a long time, NASA has, the hot topic has been the NASA budget, how small it is. How it used to be a few percents of government spending, and now it's 0.5% of the budget is. So every dollar you give to the government in taxes, 1/2 of 1 penny is for NASA, and the rest is for other shit that is not NASA. So, everyone's raise the NASA budget to just 1%. Come on, But so that way 1 whole penny will go to them. That doesn't look like it's happening, but nerds are yelling for it. So it turns out that one of the things NASA has been working on for a long time is replacing the Hubble telescope, which is a pretty awesome thing, and we went up to repair it a whole bunch of times, but it's expensive to maintain. And
Wait a minute, a whole bunch of times? How many times did we go up there and do anything to it?
Pretty sure we went up there and fixed it 2 or 3 times.
Okay, anyway.
I'm just based on memory of news and stuff, and I don't have numbers. We could go read Wikipedia on Hubble Space Telescope and find out. But anyway, it's not doing too well. It's kind of old and crummy. We could do a lot better pretty easily. And there's a project to do that NASA is, sort of, spending too much money and time on, called, what's it called? It is called the James Webb Space Telescope, right? It's been eating up the science budget. So apparently, the Washington Post just reported the Department of Defense just gave 2 better than Hubble telescopes to NASA. Like, here you go.
So we just had these lying around.
We just had these lying around unused.
Wait a minute. So clearly, what these are spy telescopes that are so obsolete.
Clearly.
Or spy satellites, at least.
And the reason they had extra ones is because they were the spares, right? And the real one must have been, right? So these are spare, because the Department of Defense always makes spares of everything, right?
Yeah.
So
well, what was the quote from Contact? Why build one when you can have 2 at twice the price?
Right. So, if these are spares that are on the ground, right, that means that, they had one in space. And they had at least another spare in space. So there's multiples of these things. They're just turned around the wrong way. And if they're giving the never used spares to NASA, that means that that the ones in space are like, they're done with those. And they put up new ones already, or maybe this speculation like, oh, maybe since they have drones that are better, they don't need the space telescopes to spy anymore, or all kinds of stuff. But the point is, there's at least one in space. If you're not using it anymore, just turn it the fuck around.
Well, you have to swap out the sensors at least. I mean, you're looking for different stuff. With
well,
the space telescope.
If we had a space shuttle, we could have gone up there and fixed it.
The thing is,
and we could.
This is just a really fascinating story because it highlights so many of the sort of high-level arguments that nerds have around the military and space and everything. That the military has so much money that they got just extras, the thing that NASA just can't find enough money to build.
Right. But the thing is,
but it's actually a lot more complex than that.
Well, yeah, but one of the major defenses of defense spending is that, look, it brings about all these great things like internets and such like that.
Yep.
Right? With, the great research that we do. That's where actually most of the defense budget is things like that. And also building things after we've invented them, like a whole bunch of jets or
the Ford-class aircraft carriers.
A whole bunch of tanks or a whole bunch of boats or guns or whatever it is, right? But the problem is that those things all too often, they keep citing all these examples of those things eventually becoming consumer grade goods or, used by other people outside the military, things that were invented in the military, like the internets. But apparently, the thing is when you invent something in the military, their primary goal, even though those things may happen, their primary goal is defense and also offense. Even though they call themselves defense, there's offense going on. A whole lot of offense. And in, games of defense and offense, when you invent something new and awesome, you got to keep it secret. Otherwise, the other guy has it now, and you're in big trouble.
Well, it depends. For example, in software design, for example, say you have an interface that's really cool. For some software that's really cool. You can show it to people like they see it, and maybe they'll try to copy it. Now, if your idea was not actually there wasn't that novel, then they can just copy it from the interface and they've got the same thing as you. Your thing was worthless. But if the back-end architecture is, the real important part, then they can see it all they want. They still can't copy it.
Yeah. But the fact that they know you have it, for example, something like a spy satellite telescope, right? Just even knowing it exists means that, they could look into space, figure out where it is, move out of the way when it's passing overhead.
But then game theory, that information itself becomes part of the equation. So you make them know that you have this uber weapon, even if you don't, for example, or you let them know, we can see everything you're doing above ground with these satellites.
But the point is, you're not going to start giving, the technology for this space satellite to people outside of the military who are just like at NASA or whatever, who might leak it or who knows what, or to just people on the street so they can make their own.
What that implies is that there is not that much special about these compared to what the military is using now.
Exactly. And this is why we should take, it's like, even though putting money into defense can result in research and new inventions that eventually, might be used by us and better our lives. I see where you're going with
this.
You should instead take that money and just give it to research directly that is open and public research.
I'm going to make the argument of I wouldn't necessarily say instead, because that begs the question that the value of the defense spending for the purposes of defense is not there.
No, because here's the thing that makes it work, right? It's like, oh, let's say we had given the money to invent the even better space satellite that we probably have to NASA, and NASA had invented the even better space satellite that we could have, right? Well, first of all, that knowledge of how to make that awesome thing and, it being used for space research would have resulted in way more benefits than just looking at terrorists and walking around somewhere, right? And two, it's not like the Defense Department wouldn't have it also, right? They just get it from the NASA and still have the spy satellites necessary.
I think it comes
right?
down more to the logistics, Scott, of how the money is allocated. I mean, how much of that money do you think is allocated to pure research in the military versus here's a specific task and intent?
And even if, right, that, so NASA invented the space thing instead of the Defense Department inventing it, therefore everyone in the whole world knows how to make one, right? But sure, great, everyone knows how to make one, and we've got them. You still don't know how many we've got, where they are, what we're doing with them. So they're still secret. And,
I guess the argument against this is that I'm still not convinced.
Anyone else who wants to make one, it's not like they can afford to make one anyway, even if they knew how.
So you rephrased what I said before, and you added a little bit more nothing to it.
What do you mean?
I don't think you just made a compelling argument. Because these satellites, one, they weren't a technology problem, they're an engineering problem. And they were made for a specific purpose. I think NASA's biggest problem is that there wasn't a very public, very direct goal that they were working toward with the majority of their effort.
Yeah, they were. They were just sucking.
What was their goal?
The James Webb Space Telescope, which is supposed to replace the Hubble, but it's been way over budget and not doing too well.
Yeah. So you realize, Scott, these satellites that the military is giving them still have to be completely retooled to do the science thing that NASA wants to do, because the military has no reason to do that part.
It is still much easier than making a whole new thing.
Yeah, Scott, you realize the military made these satellites for one purpose. The only really useful part of it, as far as I can gather from the articles I read on this for NASA, is that the satellite itself is already made, but it's not a special satellite. The special part is the part NASA's going to add and make to it, which is the actual sensors and everything.
But what I'm saying is, if that money that was given to the Defense Department to make these things in the first place had been given to NASA in the first place, right, it would have gone the other way, and we would have had them in both departments for a much longer period of time.
Maybe or maybe not, because we don't know what other fruit came out of the research in the military privately.
You're right. So it would have been even more fruit going both ways, because anything NASA invents...
Wait. So your argument is, we don't know, so therefore clearly it must have been more.
Okay, you think it would be less?
It might be.
How would it be less?
I'm saying that
we
don't know enough about what the money is actually spent on to have a discussion about that.
The point is, if the Defense Department invents something, right?
Did they invent something,
eventually,
Scott?
What?
Yes, but did they invent something, or is this just engineering? They made some satellites.
Sure, they had money to make a satellite. If they had money to make that, right? If that money was given to NASA, right? We could have had both defense satellites and NASA satellites, but instead we only have defense ones.
Well, apparently no, we have both because they gave them to NASA.
Yeah, extra ones.
Maybe they had some purpose.
And we could have had them a long time ago, right?
Maybe or maybe not. We don't really know.
Uh-huh.
I mean, the military probably had the
military's not
something.
giving it to NASA if it's not old.
Yeah, the thing is, nothing I've read says that these are particularly novel technology for satellites. It's just that they already made them. Anyway, so we don't really need to dwell on it, but I'm sure you've read the news. Google won.
We
APIs.
talked about this already.
No, we didn't, because the ruling had not been made the last time we did a show.
Oh, big difference.
Yeah, because the case before, the court, the jury had ruled on some of the points about fair use and whatever, but what had not been ruled on was the thing that the judge had to decide. Basically, the case went like this. Jury, tell us if Google infringed and if fair use is a defense. Mm-hmm. Independently of that answer, the judge got to say whether or not it even mattered, whether or not APIs are even copyrightable. And I bring it up again partly because this is a case of a judge who said, look, this is a technology thing. I'm going to learn the technology. And he basically told the Oracle lawyer, when the Oracle lawyer tried to argue that this API and this shared code was so hard to make and so many millions of dollars in damages, the judge basically said, look, I learned how to do this and wrote the code that you say is so hard to make in a couple hours. Are you really going to sit here and tell me that this is millions of dollars of damages. The thing that I, an old judge guy, figured out kind of on my own in my spare time.
Yep.
And the Oracle guy's response was basically, well, I'm not an expert on computers.
Then why are you lawyering computers?
But no, this is important because this is one of the times where the courts actually, like, there is no complaint from a nerd on how this all shook down.
No, of course not.
And
Except for the fact that it shouldn't even happen in the first place, because these patents shouldn't exist in the first place.
Yeah.
How much time and money do we waste in the
But
legal
in this
system
case,
to do
it was
bullshit?
about copyright, and in copyright now we have a ruling: you cannot copyright an API.
Yep,
That's really important. Had that gone the other way, would have been trouble.
big trouble.
But no, the real thing I want to talk about is, we've complained from the beginning when this was first a thing that this expansion of the top level domains in DNS is a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many reasons it's a bad idea, but it's happening anyway. There's not much we can do about it.
Nope.
So I wonder what the actual end result is going to be, because Google, at least, sees this for what it is, and they're getting, they got like .google. They're doing what every big company's forced to do now, getting the company name.
Yep.
But Google also went for .lol. And I have a feeling if anyone is going to do the right thing with .lol, it is going to be Google.
They're probably gonna make Goog.lol, Google.
I wonder what they're going to do with it. I think they're going to make that their another one of their domain name shorteners, for one. I don't know what else they'll do with it. But I don't know how many of you paid attention to how these domains are actually being allocated.
Well, you have to run your own root servers if you get one of these, right?
I didn't read that part. I assume so.
Yeah, which means you have to prove that you can actually run them
Well,
properly.
but Scott, not root, not, the 13 at the core.
No, but
Because those delegate, where, com, net, whatever are. So they have to run
But
the
there's
root.
someone who runs com, right?
Yes.
Doesn't VeriSign run com
So
or something?
Google will.
That's a lot of servers.
Google will probably have to run .lol and .google and
Well,
.docs.
Google, I'm sure, can do it.
It's interesting that Google is going for docs. I mean, Google Docs, yeah, but that's a pretty generic term.
I'm sure they know how to run the servers.
Oh, I trust them.
Yeah, they'll probably write their own.
But I would suggest that many of you look at how the lots are being allocated in terms of what domains are up for bidding and available when, because they're not going to release them all at once, because this is a cash grab. So every stupid bullshit domain that some spammer gets has to get its time in the limelight as, check it out, here's the list of new domains this month or this week or this whatever. So they're doing something that's kind of called digital archery, where they give you a link or something like that, and you have to click it or shoot it, basically, as close to a particular time as possible. And whoever is closest wins.
What?
Yeah, you didn't pay attention to this stuff at all, did you?
This is stupid. Are you sure this is real?
Yes. So I have already found, for example, that there are a ridiculous number of people trying to offer a service of winning this archery for you.
Wasn't Google just going to win?
Yeah.
They
What
have
I'm
an
going to say
They have
now,
an atomic clock with a computer right next to the computer you have to hit.
I am going to suggest that every Google domain, every time Google is involved in digital archery, they're going to win. And I defy anyone else to win.
Who
except
came up with this
possibly-
retarded system?
Don't even get me.
I got a better system. You ready for the system?
First come, first serve.
It's a good system. I got another good system.
Round robin.
I got another good system.
As soon as they're approved.
Whoever pays the most money wins.
All right, so you have to pay both to be ahead of everyone else for your domain and to get your domain.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we could do that. Google will still get them all because they have, untold millions of dollars.
That's what I'm saying.
What's interesting is that already a lot of professional associations are trying to get like .bank and then like work among themselves to make that a secure place. I still posit that the vast majority of the new top-level domains will be untrusted and or ignored by the vast majority of people on the internet.
I'm definitely not going to be trusting many of them.
I will probably use .google because I've realized that my personal workflows, like my life stuff, pretty much, like my life workflow online is really inside of Google the whole time. Kind of like how when I do audio and video stuff, my workflow is pretty much inside of Adobe the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'll be on .google a lot, but I don't know how much I'll trust some of this other stuff.
No, definitely not.
We're gonna make sure Pirate Bay get Bay.
.bay.
Pirate.bay.
How about .yar?
.rrrrr.
How are they gonna host the servers? Everyone will just block them easily. And
We'll see.
yeah.
I wanted to point this out
And
because
the thing
I
is,
mentioned
right,
the last show we did. I mentioned this archery thing, and I don't think many people really knew what that was.
Here's what's gonna happen though, right? Let's say I make .yar, right?
Yep.
And that's all pirate sites in there, right?
Yep.
Then most people are just using like the Time Warner DNS server or the Verizon DNS server. Those DNS servers, if you ask them like, hey, what's the IP address of Scott.yar? They'll just be like, I don't see anything called Scott.yar. I never heard of it. No such thing.
The thing is, DNS blocking, we know, doesn't really work to actually stop people from pirating.
No,
so.
but it stops normal people from going in. So if I put up billboards everywhere, everyone go to Scott.yar, check out my awesome website, and no one will really get to it unless they're smart.
We'll see what happens. I really just wanted people to see this archery thing and the sheer number of people who appear to be trying to turn that into a business.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so disappointed in the internet that this is happening.
This is pretty dumb. ICANN not doing so well. Of course, our choices are like ICANN or governments, and it's like, fuck.
Yep.
Why don't we just friggin' have, the open source people take care of it?
That's kind of a secondary thing that is, as much as I, complain about the U.S. government and ICANN and all these things, I really don't want the UN to have any power over the internet as a technological thing. I'd rather have the U.S. and or ICANN than, I don't know, the rest of the world combined.
There should be some sort of like open source academic guys who run the thing,
Yeah, who picks who the academics are?
We vote the way like Debian votes.
Okay, so we do a democracy.
Yeah, but it's all Linux guys.
So only Linux guys?
It's all just, get the friggin'
So here's how it is. If you want to vote,
the Whitebeards.
If you want to vote, you have to you have to telnet to a particular IP address and port, IPv6 only. And there you have to use get and set commands directly, natively. It won't allow anything else to follow an arcane dungeon crawling game served up entirely via...
You get to vote if you're big, fat, you have a big-ass white beard.
And rainbow suspenders.
You use Vim, you have rainbow suspenders, and you've only ever seen a Unix command line, and when you see another computer, you're like, what the hell's that?
Anyway.
Everyone knows who the guys are.
But anyway, things of the day. This made the rounds on the internet with a ferocity and rapidity that will rarely be repeated in the world. It's a thing so epic. I can't say awesome because it's both awesome and not awesome. Can't say crazy because I've seen crazier stuff. This really just counts as epic. So a dude, his cat died. I don't know the whole story.
Okay, well, cat's died.
Cat's dead. That happens. No one, immortal dog only works on dogs. And he taxidermied the cat and turned the cat into the best remote-controlled helicopter the world has ever seen and proceeded to fly around and scare the ever-living shit out of cows with it.
Nice. This is crazy.
This video combines everything that is both right and wrong with the internet together. The only thing it's lacking is Rule 34, and I'm sure that's coming. I just want to point out the number one comment on this video is in Cyrillic. The number two comment says, and I quote, "Am I the only person here that wants to know what that music is?"
Yeah, he uses weird, like, cute Japanese cat music.
It's like the kind of music you'd hear in, like, the opening video to a dating game or something like that.
I don't know.
It's odd, but this is the kind of thing that you'd see a picture of it and think, wow, that is not real. That is obviously a Photoshop. No. And not only is this real and epic, but the way he made the cat into a helicopter just makes it better.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way the cat is like splayed out, like it's flying with like holding four propellers.
Yeah, it's not. I thought he would just have the propeller coming out the cat's top like a whale, hole. But
no, this is. I imagine the cat was named Orville because the video. It's called the Orville copter by most people.
All right,
this is pretty great.
Okay, so check this video out.
I'm checking.
So this video is this guy explaining how the accelerometer in the cell phone works, right? And most people, you might know how a regular accelerometer works.
Yeah, there's a couple different kinds, but
but very few people know how. It's like, how do you make that ridiculously small, and it's like it's sort of the same way as we did the differential gear one, right? Where it's like you see the basic concept with like the Tinker Toys, and you're like, oh, the Tinker Toys, right? But then you see how they miniaturize it and get it to be so much more precise, even though it's the same mechanism. This is the same thing. It's like, what's an accelerometer? It's a ball on a spring in a jar, right? Well, how do we make a ball on a spring in a jar in like a few nanometers of silicon? And that's what this video is about.
The thing is, historically, accelerometers are notoriously inaccurate in many situations.
Oh, yeah.
And much of what I've read is that the main reason accelerometers seem so good recently partly is due to better software to interpret the data coming from the somewhat flawed accelerometer and constrain it reasonably to kind of infer what you're actually doing.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole like neat thing that I don't know enough about to say anything more than what I just said.
Yeah. But yeah, this video's good. You should watch it.
So in the meta moment, the book club book is QT84 or
1Q84.
I'm almost done with it. And since
or Ichiku Achion.
I'm flying to Toronto tomorrow, and while I don't want to go to Toronto, I'll probably finish the book on the flight home.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So we'll do a book club show on it real soon. I don't know when this episode will actually air. We have a previous episode we did that also may or may not be online yet, though I guess by the time you hear this.
I'm probably going to fix this when I get home, so it'll work.
But Kineticon is coming up in the Hartford Convention Center in July. We run the panels and workshops department. The vast majority of the schedule is done, complete, up on the website. And you should go because it's an everything con. And we have panels on almost any crazy topic you can think of. It's going to be an exciting time.
Mm-hmm.
You won't get to hang out with us, though. We're kind of busy.
Also, we upgraded our website, which is why it might take a while for this.
We're getting that little Geeknights sperm out all over the internet.
Right. So, come to our website if you really want, or just keep following us wherever you follow things.
Yep. For example, many of you might be watching the live stream of this. We're trying out the Google thing. If it works out, we'll start doing it regularly. Kind of see what we do before and after the show, which usually is sit here, kind of quiet, occasionally saying, that's bullshit. Don't use that as your news.
Let me add this to my to-do list to possibly integrate the...
We should integrate this. If this video were like the video of the current show was always just up there, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thing is, I'll tell you right now, we're probably going to try to integrate this to a different YouTube account for regularness rather than it going up on, I guess, my personal. I'm not actually sure what YouTube account this is going to go to.
I don't know.
Probably my personal one, which every time I upload a video that is not My Little Pony, you would not believe the amount of feedback I get from people that's like, yeah, where's some more pony stuff? Why are you putting up non-pony stuff? I feel like I need to segregate the pony stuff.
You got to make.
Stuff.
I think you can make channels to separate.
You can. I did. I don't think anyone who uses YouTube knows how to subscribe to just a channel.
Oh, it's tough shit.
Because
just ignore them. What do you
99% of the people subscribed to me are just on like the account as a whole.
Just ignore them.
Yeah.
Who cares?
PAX Prime, PAX Dev coming up. We will very likely be at PAX Prime doing one or more panels and events, maybe or maybe not.
What was that awesome panel idea we came up with?
I was going to ask you that because I kind of forgot.
Shit.
Oh, it was about, the concept was something about getting
Pokemon
people.
and air hockey?
Yeah, we're calling it Pokemon and air hockey, but really it's about getting... you go to a gaming con, or an anime con, and there's the guys who only care about like one kind of anime. Right. So they go to the thing about that thing. So things about that thing cater to the hardcore people who already know about it. Like at a geek convention, like for computers. Say we did a panel on like public key cryptography. People who already know what that is are going to expect it to be way inside baseball because otherwise, they already know how it works. So, and anyone who doesn't know what it is not going to show up to the panel about that. So you get to the situation where it's impossible to get people who are unaware of a particular nerdery or geekery into that thing at a nerd or geek conference because you're either superficial, but people who are into that thing won't go to it or will hate it, and people who aren't into it won't think to go, or you're hardcore and the people who are into it go to it and you never get anyone else.
That's too much of an explanation for meta moment.
Meta moment.
The sun's shining in my eyes.
We will. Oh, yeah, I got to put the thing back up in the studio.
The sun, it moved. It's summer.
Oh, God.
It's summer.
Also, we will very likely be doing the board game tabletop workshop thing again because at PAX East, that went really, really well.
It was pretty good.
I was amazed. Scott taught a bunch of people how to play a really long-winded German board game, and they sat silently the entire time, and then they all played the board game. I was kind of amazed. Other conventions, not going to Otakon because they hate us and we're blacklisted.
Whatever.
Yeah, whatever. And we'll be going to Anime Boston next year. MagFest is coming.
That's enough conventions.
Enough conventions.
Any other meta bits?
That's pretty much it.
That's good enough.
Shows will be a little sporadic until I get off of this travel schedule. So, turns out we learned recently that Stuxnet, Flame, there's been some high-profile viruses, which happens from time to time. But by all appearances, these were written by the government for political purposes.
It seems, usually you would think most of the viruses and things out there are like part of botnets, that are set up by, Russian, Chinese,
I feel like we could do a whole
Americans.
panel or a whole show on the history of malware.
Maybe.
Because think about it. It
requires
went from,
a lot of research.
Yeah, but it went
because
from...
a lot of that history is hidden history.
But it went from like harmless pranks like the Form virus
Yep.
to actively malicious like the Ogre to just trying to make money like the botnets and the spam bots. And now we've got government cyber warfare, which, cyber warfare has been mostly a joke up to this point.
Well, I mean, it's kind of funny because, we don't really know how much of it has happened or is happening because it's super secret. And, all we know is what we discover on computers around the world. And, the U.S. government has been very proactive, openly proactive, like, there's gonna be cyber war, let's prepare for it. And for years, like since the 90s or even earlier, they've been like, yeah, there's gonna be computer warfare where people will attack other countries' computer systems to deal, economic or even physical harm, and we have to prepare to defend against that, right? But meanwhile, they said it was gonna happen. Yeah, you know why it was gonna happen? Because you made it happen. You pretty much started it. Right? I mean, from the evidence that we have, not only were they, very loud about, suggesting that, someone else was going to start it and that they had to have defenses against it. But yeah, they pretty much also built the offenses and started it.
Thing is, Scott, this is not a new thing. And I point you to, are you familiar with the Siberian pipeline sabotage incident of 1982?
I do remember that the pipeline was sabotaged. I do not remember details of how it was sabotaged.
The details of this are that, now there's different classified and declassified or whatever, but basically it is alleged pretty solidly that the CIA inserted a sort of like a trigger or some bad logic in these chips that they knew were going to be used to control the valves on this pipeline, and then were able to later cause it to explode. This is in 1982. So
I read recently that someone definitely found, it could have been a BS story because I only read the headline, so I don't know if it's true, but there's always been this sort of worry that you buy chips made from some other country, they're going to have a back door in them. And it's first of all, if you're worried about that, that probably means you're doing it on your chips, right? Because you know it's possible.
Well, so Scott, you think that. I want to point out, I worked at IBM a long time ago. I actually did stuff in the factory where the PS3 chips happened. Like people use my terminals to do that crap. So many of the chips that are in technology that the military would like to use or the government would like to use, no one in the United States makes the chips nor any analog of those chips.
Yep.
But there are rules where certain kinds of things have to be made on U.S. soil to prevent that sort of thing. And many times the U.S. military or government is in a situation where they need X. No company in the United States makes X anymore, and they have to get it from China. So we kind of shot our own selves in the ass with that one.
What I'm saying is that recently I saw a headline, which could be just some guy on the internet, that said they confirmed finding a back door in some Chinese chip somewhere.
Yep, I saw some articles downplaying it, but stuff like that does happen,
Yeah.
It's not that hard to do.
But when something's in the chip, it's like, well, what the fuck can you do? You can't just patch it with the download.
But think about the complexity of that kind of hack. So, say you hack you make a special Intel chip, like a CPU. It's got to be such that it can hijack something the OS is doing and give you a backdoor into the OS's stuff.
Well, I mean, if you know the vast majority of the time, the OS is going to be like Linux kernel or Windows, right? There are a lot of common elements there. You can target something that's on a lot of machines, or you just need to know what machine you're hitting, or you can write something so generic, right? Like, you know, you could put something, you could get like just an assembly program in there that runs in the background, you know, and just sort of takes like every other CPU cycle or something if you're that low. And so it's like, okay, the computer's going slowly, or maybe, you know, the computer's so fast you don't even notice it. But really what it's doing is, you know, in a space you can't even see because it's, you know, just assembly code running in the CPU, is reading bits out of your hard drive and then sending them over the network wire. And the only way you could see that is like if you're looking at like, you know, the network traffic directly. You know, even like Ethereal wouldn't see it if it was on the same computer. We need to look from another computer.
Yeah, but at the same time, the complexity of
it's theoretically possible.
But like the complexity of controlling all of those bits to where there's no sort of audit log someone would notice. But then in the real world, security doesn't work for crap. And no one actually does. Very few people do the level of due diligence that all the experts say one should do. So
yeah, no one does that.
But so
except the NSA maybe.
So what do we do about that? Like it appears that the U.S. government may have made with other people Flame and possibly Stuxnet.
Well, we know that everyone knows they made probably both of these.
Yeah,
right?
probably.
The evidence is very high that both, because they're so complicated, and if you look at it's going to take a long time to really look through all the decompiled code.
Well,
and
did
really
you see
them.
Today there was an article?
There was. I saw this
about how they happen to be signed by Microsoft certificates.
Right.
Huh.
So if you don't know, right, when you install some software on a computer, right, you know, it always Windows is like, hey, you know, this driver is not signed, you know, by us, which means we didn't verify this is a good driver. It's just something you downloaded from some guy on the internet. Are you sure you want to trust this? Yes, no.
Now,
in order to apply that signature to avoid the yes-no question so that it's trusted by the operating system, you need a private key, which we've talked about on the show before. You can go listen to episodes about it or watch a good YouTube video about it.
Yep.
And that private key is only in the possession of Microsoft, the company. Because when you're buying Windows, well, you're trusting Microsoft with your operating system. You trust them with, you know, telling you if a driver is good or bad. You're already trusting them anyway, right? Because they wrote all the code in the OS. So, I mean, come on. So, if this virus is signed by Microsoft, that means one of a few things. It means, number one, Microsoft made Flame.
Well, Microsoft says it is a spoofed certificate, and they've already issued a patch to prevent it from working again. No, let me finish.
You're not letting me finish. I was listing the things it could possibly be, and I didn't even finish one of the things it could possibly be.
Yeah, because I think the thing's pretty obvious.
Not to people who listen to the show and aren't experts. So, thing it could possibly be, number one, is Microsoft did it. I highly doubt that.
I'm not did it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Did it, as in they made Flame.
Yeah, no
Number
way.
two, somebody else made Flame and then paid or got Microsoft to apply the digital signature to it. The government could have coerced Microsoft into doing that, or maybe Microsoft did it willingly for money or free, or who knows.
Yep.
Possible. Number three, somebody was able to get the key from Microsoft or crack it with some incredible computer or guess it or who knows.
Unlikely.
And then applied it themselves without Microsoft being involved.
I call unlikely. My guess, my gut feeling is that the government may or may not have advised Microsoft to let this go.
Microsoft just gave the keys to the government?
Or Microsoft signed it or something. Because now that it's public, Microsoft immediately had a patch available. Now, for all I know, it's probably pretty easy to issue a patch that just says this particular certificate is no longer good.
Yeah, that's pretty much what the patch says is, hey, anything that was signed with this certificate is no good anymore, and anything that if you see this, certificate coming through, deny.
The thing is, if the certificate is that easily spoofed, well, Microsoft's in trouble anyway.
That is true.
So, if the government got Microsoft to do it, I'm not saying this is what happened. I'm going to pull a Fahrenheit 9/11.
It is, but it
is interesting that Microsoft had a patch so quickly.
Well, it's not hard to make it to remove a certificate.
But were I the kind of person who was trying to convince people of a certain narrative, it is interesting how quickly. I really wouldn't be surprised if Microsoft was at least someone at Microsoft or Microsoft as a company was in on this with the governments.
It's a likely scenario.
I think more likely is
Even though
someone...
it sounds like a conspiracy theory, mathematically speaking, right? This is a matter of math.
Yep.
What's more likely? This somewhat believable conspiracy theory. Okay, I don't like to believe conspiracy theories. Or incredibly powerful computers defying the odds of powerful cryptography. There's also the possibility, I read somewhere that it was like a third-party, like handoff kind of cert. So there could have been some other...
but if it was third-party handoff cert, definitely the government.
Yeah, something
I mean,
like that.
Really.
Everyone knows who did it.
Well, there was another article
It's
today
one
on
of those things
Slashdot.
where it's like, you robbed the convenience store. Everyone knows you robbed the convenience store, but they don't have any firm evidence it was you, but everyone knows it was you.
There was
There's
another
no
article on
denying it.
Slashdot that was so much better. The headline says it all. Antivirus firms out of their league with Stuxnet and Flame. Seriously, antivirus as software, like, McAfee, all these like antivirus vendors.
We've discussed this a lot of times.
Yeah, as a technology professional, that software is bullshit.
It's useless.
Doesn't do crap.
Nothing.
I feel like in my professional opinion, you should never use software like that. If you're running Windows, just use Windows, Defender. It works fine.
And Windows Security Central.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's not, just don't even really pay attention to it that
But
much.
really, real security takes place at all these other layers in the stack.
Yep.
The local PC with its antivirus, that'll keep out baby's first, Trojan.
Yeah, but anyway, let's talk about this Flame specifically, because there's some interesting things about it, right?
Yep.
Most, like you were saying, throughout history, we've seen viruses that just make skulls float around the screen. We've seen
because
ones...
it was cool hackers being like I wrote a crappy virus based on something once and infected a bunch of my friends' PCs.
Yeah.
And
We've
I got
seen ones that control people's computers and make them send spam.
Yep.
We've seen ones that destroy people's computers. We've seen all kinds, right? We've seen ones that show people ads. There's a lot of those still going
and
around.
there probably have been ones that have been the sort of cyber warfare thing that we didn't see.
But this one in particular, the way the Flame works is if you get it, you probably won't realize you have it, first of all. And second of all, what happens is your computer is basically just spying on you all the time and sending all the things it's spying on to somebody we can't really tell who, because it's very well, concealed and proxied and who knows what.
That not to interrupt.
So, it'll turn your webcam on and look at you and turn your microphone on and listen to you, but you won't know your webcam's on because the light won't be on, and it'll get your key presses and all your web history and all this stuff. It'll basically just spies on you like crazy and then sends that information somewhere.
No, the reason what I was interrupting for is that I feel like we could do a whole show on the fact that the internet's like, on one hand, the RIA and the MPAA are always like suing people with IP addresses, and yet you can send information out in the internet to whoever you want with no one, even like big governments, not able to figure out who you're sending it to.
Yep.
And the technology as to how that works is actually pretty neat. I think the best example, read up on numbers stations. Our Hangout died. Oh well, I'll see. I'll try to reconnect. Anyway, I'm not going to stop the show for that. We were doing a live stream Hangout and it stopped.
Okay, way to ruin the show for that.
Yep.
By
Oh well.
mentioning it.
I had to say. Anyway, read up on numbers stations because that is basically how you send data to people in an encrypted fashion, even if you don't know who they are or where they are.
Yep.
And then there's literally no way to figure out who's consuming that data.
Yep.
Pastebin.
Yep.
Pastebin.
Exactly.
But anyway, so go on.
Go on what?
You were talking about how
I was just talking about how Flame spy. That's what it does.
Okay, so
which is why it's clearly it's obvious based on that functionality. It's so obvious why a government would say want to infect people that it thought were, why the U.S. would want to infect people who it thought were anti-U.S. with that.
But at the same
time, so they
time,
could gather as much intelligence about them as possible.
What also makes it very interesting is how elegantly done it is. And a lot of the reasons why no antivirus software caught it was that it was designed to hide in a way that viruses are not designed. Like, viruses tend to look in a common way, especially crappy viruses. But this one used a whole bunch of like SQLite and Lua and the kinds of stuff.
It's written using modern software development techniques, and as a result,
it looks like the kind of enterprise bullshit software that every big organization in the world installs in all their PCs.
Right, but it's also rather large. It's like a 30 meg program that's running.
It hides just like a normal, like it looks like something you're actually trying to run.
Yeah.
I mean, in the old days, I'd be like, all right, what's forum.exe? The fuck did that come from?
Yeah. The other thing that's interesting about it is how, it's set up in such a way to where not everyone who's infected is sort of running it all the time. It's sort of like they get it on as many computers as possible, but then they only activate it on certain people's computers, at a time. So even though you might have like 1 million computers infected, if you're in control of the back end of this, you might say, okay, let's spy on those 20 guys or capture audio from those guys, right? So it seems like the kind of thing that government would want to do would be infect as many people who are bad as possible at this thing, or even some good people, we don't care, right? And then if there's a bad person, we want to spy on them, we'll see if their computer's infected or try to get it infected, and then put them on the on list, and then they'll start sending data to us. And, maybe someone who already will get lucky, someone we discover that's a bad person happens to be infected. We just turn them on and we start getting data from them because they got infected a long time ago. And you wouldn't want to just have data coming in from everyone all the time because it's a pain in the ass.
So what I would like to see...
Sounds like an NSA, something the NSA would like.
Remember we always say about how no one really makes the destructive viruses, because everyone who's making viruses now are people who are making them for either a government or a military or a financial end. I feel like one way to make this to kind of inoculate the world against this level of virus software, basically, would be to make ultra-destructive viruses.
I agree.
Because that would basically destroy all the infrastructure that can't deal with it in an obvious and immediate way.
Hopefully, it would not destroy any essential infrastructure like power plants and choo-choo trains.
The thing is, stuff like that usually would, if I was going to make something like that, I'd model it on the old Ogre. Encrypt the hard drive and then delete it. Delete the key. Or just start deleting files randomly till the PC crashes. I mean, if that's what you got to do if you want to really make personal security happen. I am not saying we should do that, because as an intelligent and rational adult, that's the Batman solution. Let's go murder everybody.
Even though your computer is absolutely, you think your computer is secure because it's so up to date and you update all the programs, you don't use shady programs,
yeah,
right?
I'm a professional. I'm pretty careful.
And that keeps you really safe. And you got firewalls even, not that worms really work anymore, right? But so you think you're pretty safe, but even then, right, there's a market for 0-day vulnerabilities out there, and it's actually becoming sort of a problem in that, back in the day, it used to be, people would find a vulnerability and immediately publish it, and it was like, whoa, guys, I guess that's cool, but it's not that cool.
Now you think, all right, whatever, I have my NAS backups and my S3 backups. You know what? I'm going to tell you guys something. The people who advocate this sort of thing don't think about what Scott's bringing up, that if I'm going to write a sophisticated virus like Flame, like a real deal virus, I can probably, if I get access to your computer, log into your S3 and fucking delete everything there.
Well, no, but what I'm saying is there, used to be, I'm talking about, publication, the ethics of publication of vulnerabilities, right? Yep. It used to be you'd release right away for, fame and whatnot. So he finally sort of pushed, the community sort of pushed and said, look, guys, what you do is you give the people who run the software a head start to get a patch out, and then you publish it, and then we're all cool. And that, what it does is you give a deadline, so the company is still pressured to fix the security hole, and you still publish it because that's useful knowledge and helpful for everyone to make everything more secure.
Yep.
But you still give a head start, because if you just publish it immediately, that gives all the bad guys a chance to use it before the patch is out, and that's no good. So that's where we sort of got to. But now what's happening is there's actually a huge market for 0-day vulnerabilities because patches come out so fast. If you find a vulnerability, there's actually a huge incentive to not go through the warning the company and doing the best practice, but instead just sell it to some evil dude for $1 zillion. And now even people who are super patched and protected, and they're using like Chrome on, OS X, I've seen these vulnerabilities lately. People have found that like go through loop-de-loopies and use like 6 vulnerabilities combined to run unauthorized code on machines, and like you just visit the wrong website, even with a fully updated Chrome on a fully updated computer, who knows what, and they could get you with one of these 0-day things because the patch doesn't come out for 2 more days.
Yep.
And some guy paid a lot of money to get that. So Even when you're crazy secure, right? Even if, RIM, if people made those crazy destructive viruses, you might get hit by one on the 0 day.
Well, hence, notice I said I'm not really advocating
because maybe
this.
someone finds a 0 day that works against the Slashdot servers and then puts a thing on there that contains another 0 day against your computer. You visit Slashdot and you're dead, and your hard drive's erased.
Yep. Granted, I got plenty of backups and rotations and everything.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a backup that's offline and a hard drive in a box, you're pretty safe right there.
For now.
Yeah, he's going to make the virus that makes a ghost come out of your CD-ROM and fly over to your external, look through your house, find your external hard drives and smash them.
So it's the virus that it infects all your PCs over time, and then one day it deletes everything on your main computers. But maybe it detects when it's on laptops. So if you plug an external hard drive into a laptop, after the virus has been triggered, it just deletes it immediately. You could do clever stuff like that, but that's a silly discussion.
Anyway,
so I don't think we've talked about a long time ago. The U.S. military and the U.S. government basically said that cyber warfare is considered effectively to be one part of the spectrum of real warfare, and that it would be feasible to respond to a cyber threat with munitions.
Yeah, someone said that once, I think.
So how does that jive with the fact that it appears that our government has been engaging in active cyber warfare for some time against foreign nations?
Well, I mean, come on. If you're not a hypocrite, that means people can shoot us, right?
Well, in the sense that they can shoot us in a war.
Right. If you flamed us and you can't flame back, it's apparently, according to us, that means you're justified in missiling us with real missiles, right? Right?
Yeah. Granted, some of these people we've bombed before anyway.
That's true.
It's not like they can bomb us back.
That is, the thing about, modern warfare is,
it's a pretty crappy game.
Yeah, in the olden days, right, when, you bombed Hitler would bomb London. You bombed back and forth. And, Hitler deserved the bombing more. In fact, he was the only one who deserved the bombing. But, the good German people didn't deserve the bombing. But Hitler did. And, but in a way, right, despite the, typical horribleness of all, physical warfare, it was sort of from a game perspective. It's like, yeah, you're bombing back and forth.
What about America? No one was bombing us.
Well, we're far away. These days,
Hacks.
It's one-way bombing, which is like, well, no matter who you think good guys and bad guys are, whatever, one-way bombing. I'm bombing you. No one's bombing back. In another way, that's just not right.
One could argue that at least makes conflict shorter, or people who don't have the ability to bomb back as willing to engage in such behavior.
Yeah, it's like punching a handicapped guy. You can't punch back.
What if that handicapped guy's got a gun to a cat? And the cat can't fly away because he hasn't been helicoptered yet.
So you missile the handicapped guy, and all he can do is shoot back with his gun.
Yeah, but you got to missile him so he doesn't kill the cat.
I'm just saying, this is how the world is.
What do you do? It's a crazy. Do you kill the spiders to save the butterflies?
I know it's a crazy, fucked up world, right? But I'm talking about this one aspect of it. Everything's going one way.
Frankly,
we're gonna cyber warfare you. We're gonna hack you. We're gonna bomb you, and you're not gonna do anything to us.
Well, frankly, I think a lot of our infrastructure is just as vulnerable to it.
No, yeah, it is.
I am amazed that our government was able to pull it off.
We're assuming it was us, which is a safe assumption, but it's possible.
Could have been Israel.
It's possible it was someone else.
Probably us and Israel. Just a
there
guess.
are other people it could be. It's just most likely that it is us or Israel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where can I get the source code to Flame to infect my friends with it and spy on them?
Well, you can't because they all got the patch today, right?
Right.
Or they're running Linux, right? Right?
I wonder. No, I'm not going to mess with it.
It's weird. Like, I don't want to go too off on a tangent, but, Linux on the desktop comes up all the time. And, more recently, like, Linux on the desktop has been getting worse with the Unity desktop and the...
Linux on the desktop has two really big advantages, despite the mountain of disadvantages. One, you can make it secure.
Yeah.
Like, really secure.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, you can make it so secure it's a pain in the ass to use.
Yep.
And two, you can code on it much more easily.
But I'm saying, I'm actually starting to feel, look at Valve. They just hired tons of Linux guys, and they're making that Steam Linux. I'm not saying this is the year of Linux on the desktop, because that'll never be true. But I can see, like...
No, this is the year of
people... If you look 5 to 10 years... I can see Linux being the desktop.
Scott, I'll put it more.
Looking at when these
not the
sorts of
desktop.
other things develop.
Linux is the alternate desktop. Linux is what the people who actually care about and need to care about security for their local data use. Linux will be what the DoD guy with the secret laptop walking around is running.
I think there's going to be a lot more Linux going around.
But I think it'll be a weird switch. I think if you want to talk predictions, I think in the next 10 or 15 years, Microsoft is backing away from the corporate world and trying to go after the regular people. And I think Linux on the desktop is going to really target the corporate side.
It's possible.
I think that's the flip that's going to happen.
Could be.
I mean, I'm actually not too happy about where Metro is going lately, but that's digression
Whatever.
for another show.
If you look, the best graph, I love this graph, is the graph that shows the Microsoft stock price or profits or whatever it is, right? And you see it goes up and up and up and up, and then there's the top of the mountain, and that top of the mountain is when Bill Gates leaves and Ballmer comes in, and then the mountain goes. Eee.
I wonder if Apple will have a similar
I'm
thing in the
surprised
long run.
Ballmer still has his job. It's amazing that he's still in charge.
He's
there.
kind of like a Biden in a way.
I don't know how he's still there.
Gets results.
How can the board hasn't booted him?
Because he gets results.
He doesn't get any results.
We
He
need a
gets-
man who gets
He
results.
loses all the monies.
Well, we'll see.
Developers. He loses the developers too. Okay,
I think we're done here.
we've been done for a while.
Oh, by the way, get that Windows update. We're not kidding, guys.
Yeah.
Really. This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music, Kat Lee for web design, and Brando K for the logos.
Be sure to visit our website at frontrowcrew.com for show notes, discussion, news, and more.
Remember, Geeknights is not one, but 4 different shows. Sci-Tech Mondays, Gaming Tuesdays, Anime Comic Wednesdays, and Indiscriminate Thursdays.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.